one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in HEX on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call HEX, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto podcast, episode number 58, as we come to you live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on a Wednesday evening like we always do. Broke Boi Crypto here with you, and I have my co-host with me, Crypto Ewok, as well. A big show tonight that we are both very excited about. It's going to be short on anything other than the PulseChain ecosystem. We have a lot of stuff to get to, tons of news from... arguably news. We'll get to our takes on this, but the Richard Hart's tweets on PulseX and single-sided staking today. We have all kinds of things to talk to. There are developments with the whole BankX deal earlier this week. We'll talk about that. We have a new tool, the PulseX tool from Power City, which is something that I think people are going to get a lot of use of as this market does wage on, and a lot more in terms of the PulseChain ecosystem. Outside of that, not too much. We'll talk a little bit of classic crypto stuff, but a lot of PulseChain stuff going on here tonight as we are sweeping the lows in the case of some of the assets, or at the lows if you are PulseX. So Ewok, how are you feeling about the market this evening?
Hey, another week in the bear, another week of silly FUD, and just working our way through it, man. Just another week. It's starting to wear on people, I can tell. The attitudes are definitely showing that it's been a very long bear market. But, if you've been here before, it eventually ends. So I can definitely tell that people, this might be their first bear market and they're not really sure. So lots of worried people out there. I should just say that.
I would say that is definitely true. And it's funny because you say, you can see it's definitely starting to weigh on people. I mean, we've been saying that for a very long time, but specifically with what's going on right now, it's unique now to PulseChain actually being released. It's been about 6 weeks or so at this point. You see every day somebody that, who knows how long they've been in crypto, just saying on Twitter, which is just basically a cancer in terms of communication sometimes, but just see people saying things like, we just got to admit at this point, PulseChain is a failed launch. Let's just come out and say it. Like, just stuff like that when it's been 6 weeks, which is hysterical. Probably even more so to you, somebody who was at, in HEX from day one. But we're going to get into it all. Welcome everybody in. If you're here and enjoy the stream every single week, smash the like already. We're going to get to a lot of different stuff here tonight. Follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel. It is Creed of Crypto. We got Pac-Man in the chat right now. And answer our poll question. We're focusing on PulseX to start the stream. How many PulseX tokens do you have? We've got 4 options there, 10 to 50 million. And yeah, for some of you bigger buyers, we are focusing on some people who are maybe dabbling into the market as well. So if you have way more than what's listed on the poll, then that's totally fine. And congrats to you. But we also got 51 to 150 million, 151 to 250 million. And then the final tier is over 250 million. So feel good, obviously, if you're over that final tier. So welcome everybody in. And let's just get the stuff we don't want to talk about out of the way real quick, Ewok. We'll just kind of look at where the rest of the crypto market is. I know still on Twitter, Ben Cohen and all these other people are still celebrating Bitcoin dominance being over 50%. Alts are going to bleed, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin sitting at just about 30K even right now. It looks like ETH at about 1830. We've got HEX on Ethereum at that level that it's kind of been hovering around at 0.8 of a penny, a little bit below there. HEX on PulseChain at about 1.2 cents. Pulse at about a 14% discount off of the SAC rate. 82% off the SAC rate for PulseX, 72. Sorry, that's where we're going to get to mainly tonight. So a lot to get to. So what do you make? And there's those prices on Go Pulse, but what do you make of the rest of the crypto market right now? Do you care about it? What do you think about the continued Bitcoin dominance bragging that we're seeing on Twitter?
It's just that it's that time of the market. I mean, when people are out of a lot of things, they're selling their bags. It becomes Bitcoin dominant only because there's a lot of people that are in USDC, a lot of people in Tether, a lot of people in DAI. There's a lot of bag holders that are out there that aren't invested. So
Yeah.
that's why Bitcoin dominance shows the way it does. It's nothing to get excited about. They pat themselves on the back really for nothing. And it'll change. I mean, it's part of the cycle. So there's really nothing to brag about, in my opinion.
I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. So, while we have long talked about this year being an accumulation year, as far as most of the crypto markets, we're not going to see maybe any necessarily crazy action. Looking at Bitcoin history, I mean, there is kind of a lot of room there to run between about 32K and 37K. That if the market would get to that 32K point and then you start to get some buyers in, we could see a fly up a little bit. It does lead me to the question. I mean, not that we're concerned with too many altcoins, obviously, in this PulseChain ecosystem right now, but it seems like there's a chance we might be entering here as we're getting into the second half of 2023 already. Are we maybe getting to the point where this ridiculous bloodbath that the alts are taking, most of them down 85, 90, 95, if you're HEX, 99%. Are we maybe heading to the end of those discounts, like those kind of crazy discounts? Because if Bitcoin would run towards 40 here in the next couple of months, who knows? Alts may be kissing that goodbye as far as that kind of discount. What do you think about that? I mean, are we out of the deep, dark zone of where these prices have been here soon?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're getting close. And Pac-Man said here, July is coming, guys. Big alt season. Historically, I think what is it, about 8 months before the halvening is
Mhm.
when the alts kind of start to pick up. So yeah, we could easily be approaching that time frame where this is about the bottom. And if Bitcoin does run, that always has an effect on the rest of the market. So um we could pull out of here and not see these prices ever again. It's part of the cycle. It's part of the way it goes, and it could very well happen that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing people forget, I think, because we've been bearish now for so long, is how
Mhm.
quick these things can go too. I mean, once it does
Yeah.
start to fly, the alts will really move off the lows. So,
Yep.
we've had all this time to accumulate. You may have a little bit more, but we got to remember that these are not going to last forever, and certainly
Nope.
not with the Pulse Chain ecosystem, which we're going to get to. Um, Really quick touching on, so there's some macro stuff that isn't really all that huge going on this week, just some number releases and stuff. Jerome Powell, I believe, is speaking a couple of times. I saw that he already spoke once, and it basically just reiterated that he still says, hey, as far as inflation goes in the United States, we're still a long way from that 2% mark. We're not going to get there this year, he says, and they're going to need to just keep tightening. We're going to have more rate hikes eventually, yada, yada, yada. So how much of this, I mean, it's, somebody commented on one of our videos talking about, like, oh, this is always going to happen. The sky is falling. Oh, dude, don't you know about the macro situation? What are you talking about and all this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, he was quoting Powell's statements, and it's like, I don't necessarily take all that at face value. I mean, the guy is going to say certain things. They've been consistent with raising rates and everything, but just, how he sounds and what he says isn't exactly what they end up doing, especially because these meetings are usually 45, 60 days apart or something like that. So, yeah, they can keep tightening, but I'm not going to ignore, as far as crypto goes, Bitcoin's 4-year cycle. So what do you make of that, and what the macro situation will continue to be the rest of this year anyway?
Well, there is a lot of things, and as we've seen, they're all baked in. Everything has been so far. The market doesn't really react, crypto market anyway, to any of this stuff that the Fed is doing. So it's either, people in the need to know are making moves before it happens. That way there's really not a whole lot going on.
Mhm.
Or it just doesn't really affect it. So I don't see anything different coming until later in the year, until there is actually an actual pivot. So
Right. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. I don't know if they're actually going to pivot this year, even based on how he's talking. But again, this stuff is all 60 days apart usually. So I don't think there's that much use really looking at it right now. I'm still going to go with where we think Bitcoin is ultimately going to go, which will drag up a lot of the alts. So let's not waste any more time on that stuff. We got a lot to talk about with the PulseChain ecosystem tonight. That's what you guys watching are here for. We have the thumbnail tonight. We are going to talk about what size bag may you need in terms of PulseChain, PulseX, HEX, the OG. What are you going to need to maybe get yourself to, and this is all individual, but get yourself to that millionaire status, if not more, depending upon what it is you're trying to do as we head into this bull cycle and what it is going to actually take to get there. We're not doing any price forecasting necessarily, but these are just kind of guesses anyway on the amount of tokens that we would feel comfortable with holding. And there's a lot of ideas to go off of there. So starting off though, so this was kind of the big drama of the day. And I know you have strong thoughts on this, as do I, but Richard, and I'm going to go ahead because I've been bookmarking these tweets the last few weeks. So we'll go to Broke Boys bookmarks here. And okay, I thought I bookmarked the Richard stuff from today. Maybe I did not. Did you? Do you? I mean, we can just access it pretty easily.
I didn't.
You know what? I wonder if he deleted it.
Which one?
Like the one that set the world on fire this
The
morning.
single-sided staking one?
Yeah. Hold on a minute. Oh my gosh, he deleted it. That's why. Huh. Very interesting. Well, that's interesting to note.
Well, in one of his not too recent, more recent tweets, I should say, he did say devs have limited time. Go.hex.com is being worked on. Forget what else. Something else was in there.
But
and
before
then
you even go there, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that we backtrack to what originally happened. And I do have that tweet up, so I want to get to it. But like the deleted tweet, and I think we can both kind of do it from memory. But he essentially was ragging on the idea of single-sided staking, and he's hearing a lot of people talk about it, and he doesn't know why, and it's, what's the big deal? Then he also actually went on a rant about like, why are you so excited? What gets you off about like taking somebody else's money?
right,
I want you to summarize it a little bit, and then we'll go to the tweet you said, because I think it's important to start off with anybody that's catching up. But basically, the whole world was set ablaze basically because he was. It sounded like saying single-sided staking is not coming to PulseX, which a
right.
lot of people were apparently hoping for. So go ahead.
So let's back it up even further. And in the testnet version 2, I think it was, or 2B, one of those, there was a single-sided staking pool that was introduced. At that point, I think you could only stake, if I'm not mistaken, 10 million PulseX. It was capped. So, but you earned more of the party token, I believe it was at that point. I'm just
Right.
trying to remember because it's been quite a while.
I think you're right.
And then that kind of ended and disappeared and never came back. So, the tweet today was like, well, the one about excited to get other people's money, excuse me, was more along the lines of he was thinking people wanted to stake PulseX to get more PulseX. Well, the thought behind that was, where's it going to come from? Because this is not an inflationary token, it's a deflationary token. So who's going to pay the rewards? And I think, and then he kind of realized or maybe remembered about the party token. And that was kind of in another follow-up tweet after that. In this case, maybe the incentive token could be used, or maybe he brings back the party token. I don't know. It makes sense though, right? Why would you? So my first thought was, why are these people bitching about staking when we have the best staking product in crypto, right? Hex that's what it's for. If you want yield, stake your hex or buy hex and then stake it. I that's what threw me off. And then someone I had to comment. Usually I bite my tongue and don't say anything. But the one that I couldn't pass up was somebody had mentioned, well, Richard promised. And I had to jump all over that and say, well, first of all, Richard doesn't promise anything ever. You know, he's very clear about saying, I don't work for you guys. I never did. You don't expect anything from me or anyone. And if you want it, do it yourself, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that was, that was where I had to kind of jump in and say something and be like, I can guarantee you that Richard did not promise. I've seen just about every stream and know that Richard never promised that we would have it. So he then proceeded to, well, anyway, let's go from there. But after that, then, like I said, he came out with the tweet that said, I got all this other stuff first. The devs
So
have
here,
finite
I'll read
time.
it. I'll read it exactly. I pulled it up here. So yeah, so
Okay.
he I think he realized, and people are allowed to do this, believe it or not. Some people I think were pissed that he deleted tweets. And now that I'm seeing that the tweet is deleted, I did see somebody talking about him deleting a tweet earlier today, and that must have been it, obviously.
Right.
But probably better to think better of it. And he probably realized, and he has done this, I think, inadvertently before, but he thinks he's just kind of, and he is, I think, playing some kind of 4D chess or just kind of saying something without saying it, which I really actually value in his tweets. And then dumb people don't understand it, and people that read into it a little bit better do. But I think he deleted it because he just saw what it was kind of in part causing. So yeah, then later on, and I said to you, and we're going to be, vindicated here, as some people would say, off of Richard Hart tweets. But I said to you, those initial tweets that set everybody's hair on fire didn't necessarily say single-sided staking wasn't coming. A lot of times he will do things like that, saying, tongue-in-cheekly, this is what I would do. Or, just kind of cluing you a little bit like, I don't recommend doing it, but it'll be here. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I did say that to you. So then he tweeted it a little bit later today. Devs have finite time. Go.hex.com is being worked on for PulseChain. That's another thing we're going to get into tonight. A lot of people, not a lot. I've seen some storms on Twitter about why can't I stake Hex on PulseChain on the normal Hex front end. So we'll get to that. He also says the auto router is being worked on, which is going to allow you to seek the best prices for anything you're trading on PulseX. Upstream updates are being merged for core clients. Wallet Connect is being upgraded. Single-sided staking needs to wait. So right there, and that's kind of what I was thinking, and I think you probably were too, Ewok, is like he didn't say like there is no single-sided staking coming to PulseX. I think that's more, that tweet right there is more what he kind of meant. So
Right.
yeah, what's your takeaway there?
Well, I didn't even know that he deleted it. I didn't catch it.
I didn't until now.
That it was gone either. So you never, people put too much value in, I guess, what he says too quickly, overreact without thinking. And it goes back to what I said earlier. People are just so emotional, and they get so uptight about the littlest things. I don't know. It's a hard place to be, I guess, when you have overextended yourself and are in a bad financial position where you can clearly see that people are getting overly emotional about the littlest things. And just like you said, I don't want to lead into this yet, but even the staking thing, we have other options. People are just, I feel like there's just not enough people or not enough gratefulness, for the things that we have and the things that we've gotten. And it's mostly because price is down, and all these people didn't see their 2x, 5x, whatever it was within 30 days. And, we kind of said that's probably not going to happen, guys. It's probably going to dip just like Hex did. And
Right.
we've been preaching it, but no one's listening. They're overly emotional about it. And they're just in a tough spot. Some people just aren't happy to begin with. And I think that's another thing too.
Yeah.
Until the price is going up and everybody's dancing around in kumbaya, it's going to be rough for a lot of people, and they should stay off Twitter. But they've got to vent somehow, I think, and that's their method of release, I guess.
I think that's what it is. I think a lot of people, you're right, aren't happy to begin with, but then also are offsides with their financials in terms of maybe even their entire lives, but then also how they dealt with getting into the Pulse chain ecosystem or crypto or over leveraging their sacrifices and stuff like that, and just having way too high of expectations. But what you just said. So let's transition to the most interesting part of this that people that I think were really thinking thought of afterwards is everybody has the shiny new toy syndrome. Obviously, everybody wants Pulse, everybody wants PulseX. They want, we've seen people emergency end staking Hex to participate in these paltry liquidity pools on PulseX, which makes zero sense. And then they're also looking for the PulseX single-sided staking. This stuff is garbage compared to staking Hex. Like when you have a barometer against the original smart contract that was staking Hex for up to 15 years, you don't have to do it that way. Hell, if you have a huge bag right now and you just want to try to time it for the top of the next bull market or something, stake it all at once and get however many T-shares you want to. I mean, I think people just, and we've said it a million times over the last few weeks, people are losing what Hex was about. And we're going to get to it probably again later. And I know I sent it to you, but RG3, Hex OG, practically Crypto OG, was on with My Life is Awesome, Coach Lit earlier today. Ben Cage was there, RH Max. A lot of people were on the stream. And he just broke it down so well and was like a reminder of like how amazing Hex is. And a reminder, again, something that we have said is that Pulse Chain was just the new highway to drive Hex on. This was built for Hex to make Hex more accessible, cheaper to stake, cheaper to unstake, all these fees that people are dealing with Ethereum, which may still come down somewhat as well. But people are just forgetting the power of Hex. That the rewards that you can get from staking Hex, mining Hex, whatever you want to call it, I mean, nothing else in this ecosystem is going to beat it when it comes to a CD of some sort or something where you can actually mint your own rewards. So I think that's what people need to come away realizing out of this. What do you make of that, Ewok? When do you think people are going to like come back and realize like they need to go back to some old school like Hex training and watch some old videos or something like that so they can forget about Pulse doing a 100x in a month or something?
I don't think it's going to happen until the price starts to run. I really don't. I didn't see it yet. I know you sent me the link to it. I started to watch it, but didn't get into it. But he's absolutely right. Pulse Chain was not built to be an, ETH killer or anything like that. It was because the Ethereum fees were killing the Hex stakers. So he wanted to fix it. So yeah, I mean, I really think it's going to take the price run up and hopefully it takes off like crazy. And all these people are going to have to jump back in, and it until they see it again in another cycle doing what it does, they're going to forget about Hex, and that shiny new object syndrome kicks in. And it's this or that or this sacrifice or whatever it may be. Where can I put my funds to get the next 5x, 10x, whatever it is quickly? The lottery mentality is going to wreck people. And unfortunately, they're not going to make it. A lot of people are not going to make it. And, it's sad because at one point I thought the community was tight, and it still is. Don't get me wrong. Don't take that the wrong way. But so many people have wrecked themselves, and now they're trying to dig out, and there's a lot of desperation, and they forget the core values of why this community was founded in the first place. It's sad.
Well, I'm glad you brought up community and some of the people in it, because this is something I wanted to hit maybe later in the show, but it does make sense to start approaching it here in a moment. But finishing off as best we can on the PulseX thing. So once again, much like when Richard tweeted about like, hey, it looks like the market has decided that Hex on PulseChain is the more desirable asset so far. Like, in other words, he made an observation a couple of weeks ago about which Hex was higher. Basically, Hex on PulseChain has been 30 to 50% marked up over Hex on Ethereum. He made an observation. He did not say, hey, any of you that are trying to sell off eHex and declaring it dead and stupid for anybody to get into so you can, get more views on your YouTube channel and get subscriptions on your Patreon. He didn't say that you are vindicated and you are correct. He made an observation. And what so few people, I think, realize, like we said a moment ago with his tweets, there's often something left unsaid that if you read into it enough, you see and learn something from. And I think from that one I just referenced, it was clearly just an observation. And the money is going to flow back into Hex on Ethereum, which I definitely think that we will see. But just like that one today, I don't think he never was saying single-sided staking isn't coming. He will criticize mechanics, and like, you can use Hex suboptimally. You can make daily Hex stakes for some stupid reason and not benefit from, you know what I mean? Like, you can use all of these tools incorrectly. That doesn't mean like it's a bad product or anything. He didn't necessarily say that single-sided staking isn't coming to PulseX, and I think that's why he followed up, deleted those tweets, because he realized that's what people thought it meant. And later on said that that's not a priority right now, basically.
Right. Yep.
So what do you make of these people that are like getting out of their PulseX bags based on this news that doesn't really exist? It's just hilarious.
We go back to the over emotional state of people right now. They jump whenever they think there's something wrong. And I think it's funny because now they're going to have to buy back in. We saw the dip right away. It happened within minutes of his tweet. It's over. They say it's over. Oh my God, the world's ending. Chicken Little, the sky's falling, and it's crazy how they need to get outside, get some fresh air. Of course, now there's freaking smoke from these stupid fires again. But
get your shit together, Canada. If anybody in the
Canada, so we can get outside and get some fresh air, right? These
Please.
people need it.
Yeah.
It's over emotional. It's messed up. It dipped immediately as soon as he made that tweet, and I think he realized it, and again deleted it. But either way, they sold, right? I mean, they got out. A lot of people sold because the market dipped considerably there pretty quickly right after that tweet was made. And it's like, I don't understand. Again, you've got Hex. If you want to stake single-sided and get more of that, whatever. Otherwise, it was going to be another token that probably would have been a dump token anyway. It would have had the same effect that your incentive token is looking like right now. People are just getting it and dumping it. So why do you want more of something else that just gets dumped? Why wouldn't you want to stake something that by locking it up does the thing that incentivizes that coin to go up, right? When you lock a coin up, people buy more than they sell. That's the goal. That is how price goes up. It's the only way price goes up is people buying more than they sell. Well, when there's more coins locked up, there's more people buying than selling because people are locked up. It just makes sense. And I don't know, man. They just don't get it. It baffles me how clueless and how quick they are to make a decision and just not think things through.
Yeah, well, we'll get to this in a moment, but I mean, obviously, you and I personally, we just like everybody else, we're going to say, hey, non-financial advice, but we do like to share what our thoughts are and what we are doing. And of course, we're buying everything in this ecosystem. Really, probably what either of us are buying the least of is Hex on Pulse, because Hex on Ethereum is cheaper. So why would I really right now? But really what we're interested in doing, obviously, acquiring some PulseX at these prices today is pretty cool, as well as continuing to buy HEX on Ethereum and stake HEX on Ethereum. Like that's what everybody doesn't want to do and is forgetting about. So it's what we will gladly do. So that's kind of what we're thinking about right now. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, hit the like. We very much appreciate it. We do this every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I want to get into...
Before you do, Andrew wants it to get out another 50%. So just let you know.
Andrew, what is that for? What, PulseX, or he wants everything to go down?
Probably 50%. All of it. I don't know. Okay. By the way, real quick, shout out. Andrew and his fiance got engaged this weekend, so I wanted to say congratulations on air.
Well, congrats to you, Andrew. Just don't let her have any of the gains until we've hit the top of the bull market. Anyway.
Make sure you have a prenup, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. But congrats, Andrew. So I'm not trying to start any. This isn't drama what we're about to do. I think this is actually a very worthwhile segment we're going to do, because as this market picks up, so PulseChain's only been out for 6 weeks. As you know, Ewok and everybody watching, another year into this market, if not 2, we're going to have tons of people coming into this ecosystem and wanting to find content about it. Like there are people right now that are going to be investing in HEX and PulseChain that have never even heard about HEX before yet, and, kudos to them. They're going to be able to buy everything at these great prices right now. But, I think it's important to point those people in the right direction as far as like where to learn some of this stuff, and where to go, to learn maybe like tutorials about HEX, tutorials about PulseChain bridging, all these little things that maybe we take for granted because we do them all the time and kind of know what we're doing. And I'll be honest, Ewok, now you and I have different experiences because you were really a HEX OG. So you were watching Richard Hart from the get-go. I mean, you were watching Richard Hart before HEX was a thing, when it was HEX, Bitcoin HEX, so what I want to caution some people that may be new and are maybe watching a stream like this right now, because this is something that I went through with the HEX ecosystem, is there's a lot of directions that you can go to for content on this. And I do hate that word. Content makes it seem like just kind of vapid crap that people are releasing, which some of it is. But you want to make sure you're going places where you really trust the people that you're watching, and you believe that their intentions are good, because there's a lot of people out there, and this isn't unique to HEX or PulseChain, but that are making content that is specifically tailored, and edited in a certain way. And I'm not even going to criticize clickbaity, because, hey, we need to get the clicks. I mean, like if we don't make certain thumbnails, people won't even come and watch your content, even if it is good material. So you do need to have that. So I'm absolutely not hating on that. Hate the game, not the player. But or hate the player, not the game, whatever. But there are people out there that are, I think, clearly, and I'm not going to name them at all, but are clearly in it for dubious reasons, do not have good intentions, and are more so trying to build up their own personal brand, totally separate of HEX, PulseChain, really educating people. Whether that is to get paid through YouTube, which we do, it's a paltry wage, and we're way more excited about investing in this ecosystem, but get paid through YouTube, get paid through their courses, whatever it is. You need to be able to identify those people, because there are a lot of them. And I will tell you too, that like when I was on, like HEX Twitter at the beginning, there's a lot of, this isn't a blanket to anybody, but there's a lot of cheerleaders that maybe aren't necessarily like offering any real like stuff to learn. So I think it's important to focus on the people that I have discovered, and I'm going to kick it to you too, Ewok, to name yours, but who I think are like the people that are must follows for learning this stuff. And I have the utmost confidence are the people that have good intentions and really believe in this notion of crypto self-sovereignty and really love the stuff that Richard Hart has built. So for me, just to name some, obviously Johnny Chaos, he's not an actual streamer, but that guy may be the pinnacle of anybody to follow for actual good information. And, he's been in a pissy mood lately, and I don't blame him at all, but, he will hop on streams occasionally. He was just on with Matty Allen, another guy that I would put in there as well. Obviously, he was just on there the other night. Randy Hilarski, obviously your friend Sami, who's just taken everything by storm the last few months. RG3, who we mentioned was on that stream today. I am a fit of My Life is Awesome, Coach Lit. He was doing some good stuff today. Obviously, Crypto Coffee, probably the premier place to go for actual education on things. I like Big Pep streams. I've just kind of been turned on to Ben Cage, who was on that stream today. His stuff is good. Axis Alive for different charting. Mm-hmm. There are more, but I think it's really good to highlight those people because I think you can go down a couple different lanes in this ecosystem where you, like I said, there are some people, not unique to PulseChain, that are in it for different reasons than to actually educate. And I really trust and admire all those people. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts.
Well, I probably echo a lot of those people. So, we agree on that sentiment with the people that you mentioned. The one thing I wanted to state, though, is if you see somebody coming out with a bunch of courses or just advice, pay me for my time. You definitely want to make sure they know what the hell they're talking about. As far as Crypto Coffee goes, his course is probably one of the cheapest for the best value. Right. I know DCC has a course out that they have a course, but they really branch out into a lot more, a wider spectrum of stuff. So it's a little bit different. I mean, if you just kind of focused on Hex content, Richard Hart community wise, Crypto Coffee's course is probably the best value that you can get. Right. I think it's $200 and you learn from start to finish just about everything you need to know. So, be careful with the people that you're paying for their time, and make sure that they've been around for a while. As far as I'm concerned, some of these people are not old enough to be paid for advice because they haven't been around the block enough times. I maybe not even enough cycles to see crypto. This might even be their first cycle, and they get a little bit of viewership, and then they start charging for time. I don't agree with that. If you want to make good content and put it on YouTube and get paid that way, fine, great, but start marketing yourself, and you're technically now offering financial advice, and you got to be very careful. Because if you tell somebody to do one thing and especially when you pick a side, right? I'm gonna bring it up right now, the EHEX PHEX thing. If you tell someone to pick a side, you better be right, or you're giving financial advice, and if you're wrong, you have a 50% chance of being wrong. So just be careful. I hate that. Nothing more than thanks, Johnny. Nothing more than somebody telling somebody which side they should be on. As far as I'm concerned, your safest play is be on both sides, right? And I know Johnny said this more than once, but the sum of both coins are going to be more than just one, and especially if you pick the wrong one. So the sum of both is going to be just as you're better off going that route. So I don't know. That's my rant on that. And I don't want to, like I said, I'm not bringing up names. People know who I'm talking about if they are paying attention, but I'd rather not give any more attention to them than needed. So.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It reminds me, I put this in my notes just because I thought it was funny, but it kind of reminds me for any wrestling fans of the old WCW, WWF comparison back in the day, prior to when WWE just obviously acquired everything. But those two organizations, it reminds me of that because like the clickbaity, heavily edited. And here's the really shitty thing about some of this heavily edited stuff. Like I obviously go back and edit snippets of our show and put them out as clips, and they're pretty clean edited. There's not a lot of, weird stuff in them or anything like that. But it's also you and I who are like real life friends that know and trust each other. There are people out there that have a guest on that comes on as a courtesy, and then they go back and edit that guest's material to make it seem like they said something they really didn't. Mm-hmm. And that is, I would have a bone to pick with that person if you were doing that to me and I was a guest on your show, frankly. So yeah, there's some of that going on. But anyway, the WCW thing. So WCW was basically like, let's sign all these like, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage. We're going to get the Ultimate Warrior back, Ric Flair, like all these huge names. And they were just a shit organization. They didn't have good writing. Everything was terrible. Those guys were all past their prime and everything. Whereas WWF didn't have all those names, but then just kind of built themselves up with, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and they had the actual good product. So that may be a terrible comparison, but that's just what I'm saying between kind of the well-oiled machine hex channels versus the ones that are just trying to take your money. So, and that's not to say there's many of that, saying take your money is probably a bit strong, but I don't want people thinking there's all these landmines out there. And, anybody training about this stuff is probably a net positive at the end of the day. I would just recommend people be careful, and hopefully the good names that we mentioned, are ones that people will go to as they enter this market. So,
yeah. And Johnny said it perfectly here. If you hold both, you have a 100% chance of holding the right one. If you pick one, you have 50-50 chance of picking the wrong one. So that's, but either way, the sum of both, even if you had decided back when Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash split, if you decided to be on the Bitcoin Cash side and sell all your Bitcoin because you thought Bitcoin Cash was going to take over, imagine how bad you would feel right now to have a big bag of Bitcoin Cash and no Bitcoin,
Right. Yeah.
That's the position that you could easily put yourself in. So think about it that way. But if you kept both, you have both your Bitcoin Cash and your Bitcoin, and you're better off. You didn't lose. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. So so getting back to what you think the contrarian play is, and maybe not even the contrarian play, but the thing that we are doing right now and interested in doing is I want to buy more hex on Ethereum, and I want to stake it. That's like what I'm looking at right now. And speaking of that, so we've had a lot of issues with this, and I do agree that this is, I don't want to call it a big problem, but I'd be curious to know what is going on. I tried to stake hex from PulseChain on the hex front end, just go.hex.com. And yeah, it takes a long time to load. There's been many issues with it. Richard Hart, in that tweet we mentioned earlier, said that looks to be one of the top priorities that they're working on fixing right now. But there was a tweet the other day over the weekend from Pulse Orca on Twitter. And I really don't think he was totally trying to hate, but he was just saying that he felt like it was a big problem. When is that going to get fixed and all these things? And people were kind of meeting his complaints with like, well, hey, there's multiple other front ends. Everybody is kind of co-signing the, Alex McWhirter icosa.pro, where you can stake Hedron, stake icosa. You can also do the HSI stakes for hex on there. I did one today, and you can do that from PulseChain very, very easily on there. It reads it right away. Also, Matty Allen, something that you threw out there to me and I threw out there to them, has a front end as well. I always forget what it is. Tshare.app.
Yeah. It's go.tshare.app is the staking part of it. Tshare.app is just the regular website, and then the front end is go.tshare.app. You got apphex.win. I think there's 5 or 6 other ones. Orca was, yes, Johnny just said it. Orca was being
I was going to read that,
concern troll, Eric Wall Jr. So, people do that, and they're like, well, how can I bring anybody into this space if the main site isn't working? Well, why? Because there's a bunch of other ones that are,
right?
And I'm sure Richard's priorities are to get other things done first. There are more important things than a staking front end, especially when you have alternatives. It doesn't make sense. You got to prioritize things. And, Richard's always been, we've said this many times, he's always been 2 or 3 steps ahead. So trust him, trust what he's doing. They're working hard behind the scenes, even though we shouldn't expect anything from him. But we know they'll be taken care of. If you know anything about him, he's very proud to say how 100% uptime, things like that. And I'm sure it bothers him when things aren't working the way they should. It will be fixed, guys. Just relax. Use one of the other ones for now. And if you can't onboard somebody because of that, well, then, that's a terrible reason. So
yeah, baby, you must not know enough outs to get your stuff staked then. So I'm with you 100%. The points that people made about it actually being more decentralized, really, the fact that there's multiple other front ends to go use that are community built, I think is a great thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably the top place to recommend, just because the layout is so nice and everything, is icosa.pro for sure.
Yeah.
And I did do a stake the other day with Matty Allens too. So, definitely good stuff, and kudos to those guys for building it all, obviously. So, I want to touch on this quick. And speaking of Johnny, I saw him talk about this the other day. I mean, everybody's been talking about
Well,
this.
Johnny just asked if he wanted to pop in. You send him a
Sure.
link?
Yeah. Because I would like to ask him about this. If you want to send him the link, that'd
I'll
be
send him
be fine.
I'll send him an invite here. Hang on.
It's funny how Johnny just kind of appears, on these.
All you have to
streams.
do is stay chaos, and
Yeah.
there he is.
And then he comes a calling. So we'll get him on hopefully here in a moment. It sounds like. If you guys are here though and enjoying the stream so far, smash the like. We very much appreciate it. Subscribe to the Creed of Crypto channel. We do this stream every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I want to talk about this BankX thing just a little bit more. So we don't have to get into the weeds too much, but so basically, if you guys are late to the party on this one, BankX was a silver, basically, I forget how they actually pitched it. Basically, a stable coin that was a derivative of where silver is sitting price wise. There's some guy named Lance, I guess, that was in charge of the whole thing. So they got sent it was 800 million hex, correct, from the God Whale. There he is, Johnny Chaos. Welcome
Johnny
in.
Chaos, welcome. Yeah, it was like
Hey, gentlemen.
I think it
Good
was
to
like
see you.
880 million.
Yeah.
820, 830, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So that's where we stood. I think they sold a little bit of it off. And then we saw the other day, this was on Monday, that Lance, whatever, somebody involved with BankX basically staked the whole thing, or most of the kit and caboodle anyway, for like 34 days. I'm going to kick it to
Put
Johnny
it into
first.
3 wallets, 200,000 or 200 million in each wallet, and they're doing rolling stakes. Like, I don't know, like Hex was designed to do.
Yeah. Right.
So we're actually teaching them how Hex works, and they're actually learning that you can't just tap the sell button or you get the worst possible price.
Yeah.
So actually, this is a good thing because they're now learning how the system works. After doing those rolling stakes long enough, they might say, wait a second here.
Let's go a little longer, right?
Maybe I don't want to sell it right now, because if they were to sell it right now, they get $1 million.
Yep.
They lose 9 million right now.
Yep.
If they were to sell it. Okay. So if they're scammers, that's exactly what they'll do. And the next day, boop, like it never even happened. It's only 2 days of the adoption amplifier.
Yeah.
We had 500 million come off 365 days, man. 500 million every single day. If you think about it, let's say they sold at full market value. That's $10 million. What do we do in daily volume?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not as big of a deal as people think it is. And unfortunately, the new guys, they just hear 800 million, oh my God, and they can't fathom that amount of number.
Well,
And here's the thing. You think you're safe somewhere else? No. There's whales in every single coin that can wreck the price at a whim.
Yeah.
Right? Temporarily wreck the price at a whim. And people don't realize that. That is something they need to be educated on. You can't be Chicken Little and duck for cover every time somebody's going to make a sell. And this is a problem. And look, we've got people in the community that are good people, okay? And they're scared. And then their fear projects on other people. But you got to remember, every one of us, we're just human beings. We're going to react with, certain ways. And when you are panicked, you are not thinking rationally. That's when you're going to make the biggest mistakes, is because you're already in fear mode, right? Yeah. Now, as streamers and as community members, it's kind of our responsibility to let people know, okay, I understand that you see that as a lot of money, and I understand, yes, it can temporarily wreck the price, but if you're staked out for a year, you need to worry about a price a year from now, not what's going to happen on the 5-minute chart.
Yeah.
Well,
and Silver didn't do us any favors. I know he's way deep into this,
right.
But his post really kind of created a lot of fear as well. So As
And
much as
I
I
was gonna,
respect his opinion, he's got to be careful about things like that, because that creates a chain reaction of events that isn't good.
yeah, well, it can because of this stuff. And I got a little harsh because I was kind of on my tangent about other people, and I said, unnecessary fear. But the thing is, this thing bothers him. It does bother him. Uh, and he's projecting that to the community as where we've all seen it before. This is not the first time there was hundreds of millions of hex dumped.
Right.
We started with hundreds of millions hex dumped right out the gate when Nightly Crypto decided to take a shit on us. Yep. Right. Yep. 150 million emergency unstaked it, sold 90 million one sell market dump. In Hex's infancy. Yeah, if it was any other coin, that would have destroyed it. So these dumps, these large dumps that we sustain through, don't show you weakness. They show you strength. How do you know how strong something is if it hasn't been battle tested, right? And that's what we've seen over and over again. When we had that first initial dump, it was like 200 million hex, and the price went dead, bloop, like it never even happened. Not that long ago, we had a 200 million hex dump. Okay, yeah. And when you are in the chain, and I had to stop doing it. I had to stop doing it myself because I get into the chain analysis and I start seeing people making stupid moves, and I'm thinking to myself that I'm not doing a good job of educating people, and I'm taking it all personal because I'm like, how are they doing this stupid shit? It's like, am I not loud enough? Am I not, projecting enough? What's going on? And then I think, look, I got like 24,000 followers.
Yeah.
I don't have a stream.
Can't be
responsible. And there is over 300,000 hex holders. They don't even know who I am. I'm taking this shit personally. They don't even know who I am. And if they did listen to me, they probably ignored me anyway. And that isn't my problem. So all I can do is focus on the people that want to listen.
Yep.
And, I like Silver. I think he's a cool guy. I learned a lot from chain analysis and stuff from him. The problem we have is people are psychologically default fear, right? And that is for survival purposes,
sure,
right? And that's ingrained into our essence that we're default fear. And in the fear of the unknown is the biggest, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen until it does. So your mind is going to start filling in the blanks negatively, and that is just human. That is just human. That's survival. That is human. And you have to fight that shit with all your life if you're going to survive, because, in this space, because the fear is around every corner. The fear is around every single corner. This is nothing new. This has all happened before.
Yeah. Especially this time in the market, this time in the cycle anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really nothing for people to get worked up about, but unfortunately, the greener they are, the more unsure they are.
Yep.
Because they've not lived through it before, right? The first time you get into a fight, you are nervous as hell. But if you win the fight, then you get a little confident, right? And let me tell you, you guys have taken the biggest ass whooping that you could possibly take in this space right now. And if you can survive this, you can win any fight.
Yeah.
So hang in there. Hang in there. Don't let people get you worked up.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, it is a fact that, people will do more to avoid pain than they will to attain happiness or go after their goals or anything like that. So yeah, they're going to check the fear box first before anything else. And another point about what you just said, Johnny, is like on these other chains, because all the time, all these chains are going to have to deal with like dumpage from whales and things like that. Keep in mind on pretty much any other one of these chains, we're seeing a lot of people talk about like Optimism and Arbitrum and all this other crap right now, Aptos and New Layer One. The people that are dumping there are people that collected all these tokens at a severe discount to what you bought. So, these people have even more incentive to dump and dump even quicker because they got these tokens at a discount before they were even on the market or anything like that. It's a way, way, way more dangerous space than this. I mean, like BankX may still do it eventually. Who knows? But they were gifted the tokens.
Let me throw one out for you here. What if God Whale gave it to him so they would dump it so that he could buy it all back at a discount and still own a controlling stake in their BankX?
I've heard that too. Yeah.
I mean, think about that for a second. You get to sacrifice $10 million and you get to buy it back for $100,000 because they dump it, and you still have a $10 million stake in their BankX.
Yeah.
Because you literally purposefully gave it to somebody you knew who was going to dump it, because they did have a cap on how much. I mean, literally, he controls it. They had a cap on how much he could sacrifice, and he took a majority of it.
Yeah.
So he has the controlling interest in that particular company. Now, whether or not it succeeds or not, it's not the point. But if you give somebody $10 million and then they give you all your money back, it's like you never even lost it.
Right.
That's pretty damn smart play. And if everybody's scared right now and nobody else buys it, he wins because he gets to buy it all back while everybody else is scared.
Sure.
Right.
Well,
So the pretty unique play. So, I don't like the fact that people have been badgering the God Whale. You don't know what his motives are or reasons why he does things, right?
Right.
But I mean, that's just one type of speculative play. And we know, look, God Whale's got a stake in this too. He wants to protect his price.
Sure.
Okay. So, but that's pretty funny if you think about it. Just give it away to somebody you know who's going to dump it, and then you end up with it back anyway and still have the controlling interest.
Or, you know what? He still has a lot of HEX left, even with that 800 million. What if he dumps the 800 million on the Pulse side? Nobody said anything about that.
Right.
He could easily do something similar on that side of the chain too. So there's no guarantees what his true motives are.
And he's a person.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
a person. So he could change his mind about HEX tomorrow.
Yeah.
God Whale himself could dump on you.
Yeah.
What happens if God Whale starts selling? Are you all going to run for cover, or what you going to do? Because you got to think about this. God Whale could sell to get a better price for himself, right? So the way to deal with whales in the ecosystem is for the guppies not to be scared. If the guppies are scared, the whales control the system for forever.
Oh yeah.
You never get to be a whale being a scared guppy. So, you got to think about that. There are wallets. There are controlling wallets in every single coin that can send any coin near zero.
Sure.
Yeah.
If Satoshi dumped all his coins, guess what would happen? There's only like 16,000 Bitcoin in order books. Okay. So
he would dump it.
You dump like 20,000. How many wallets have 20,000 Bitcoin?
Not many.
If they just want to go, of course they'd have to run around from exchanges and, there's market moving and stuff.
Yeah.
But let's say theoretically, if there was a timed movement to drive down the price, which some of these institutions could possibly do.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. They're already, everyone's been begging for this institutionalization of crypto. Guess what? Satoshi's rolling in his grave right now. That was never his intent. You should pull up the white paper sometime and just read it for the audience so they can actually understand that the institutionalization of crypto is never what it was meant to be. And we have these people out there, they're just begging and pleading for institutions to come in and buy their bags. And what they don't realize is they are enabling the institutions, and they're taking away their own opportunity by doing so. But they don't care because they're sitting with 2 or 3 Bitcoin in their wallet and they're like, I'm going to the moon because I'm so vested. It's just hilarious. And some of them don't even have that. They got 0.01 or something.
Exactly.
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, Johnny, because we didn't have that slated to talk about tonight because we did a little bit last week. But I really want to hear your thoughts on this because, everybody is clamoring about these institutions getting involved in, oh, man, look at all these ETFs. Like, this is
not good.
And all this stuff. Yeah. So let me know. I want to know specifically what you think about this. Like, with this upcoming cycle in mind, everybody has talked about, how they did last bull cycle. We're going to have 6-figure BTC, 100K BTC. have a time frame set up for it. What do you think we could see? We know that Bitcoin and crypto's returns are largely diminishing cycle over cycle. So do you think, and we just made a video on this the other day, and all these people didn't understand what our point was, but do you think that we could see even more diminishing returns because the market, who is buying up everything right now, those institutions, will have incentive to dump on grandma and grandpa Bitcoin ETFs heads? And who knows, we don't even get far over 6 figures BTC, or maybe the bull market stops out early. What do you think we see this coming cycle because of the institutions being involved?
That is full of loaded questions.
Give me some loaded answers.
Are you gonna ask me next? Is HEX gonna hit $30,000 so we can do a quick little crop and say, yeah, this guy's, he said this. Yeah. So
yes.
So here's the thing with that, man. This is uncharted water here. The institutions are making a power play for Bitcoin. Are they going to try to crush it, or are they going to try to crush us? That's the question. See, Bitcoin has to be traded on centralized exchanges. All of this stuff is off-chain back room. So to really understand what's going on in Bitcoin is almost impossible. Mm-hmm. And our networks are very clear and transparent. Okay, everything's on chain. There is some DEXs that do some sales, right? But the majority is online and visible. And that's part of the problem with HEX and Pulse and everything, is the fact that all this shit is normal. It's always going on. Just we have people that have the ability to track it because it's so open and transparent. So then when you take that extra knowledge, you're kind of armed and dangerous. If you have all the information, you're going to speculate. And if you're going to speculate, you're gonna start looking towards the gloom and doom. It's really, to get back to your question though, because I don't want to stray too far from it. I do that because ADD. But the problem with that is no one knows. No one can know, because of all, we don't know the intent of what's going on right now. So that is a big fat unknown. Now, if we're just looking at normal cycles and saying diminishing returns, I'm kind of in agreement with Somi on that people are going to be calling for the 100,000 Bitcoin, and will probably get upwards of 80,000. Now, with the institutionalization and stuff that's going on, I think that's an advantage towards our ecosystem, because what we need to do is kind of promote that, look, this is a clear and transparent network. There is not this closed door stuff going on that goes on, and with the institutions, right? We're trying to get back to the ethos. And yeah, I understand people are like, well, the OA owns, dude, go to etherscan.com, okay, click tokens, and look at any of those tokens. There are, you know what? Let me send this to you. Let me actually send
the list of like 100 or however 50.
How centralized they are. Yeah. People seem to forget that centralization like that is what happens with these things at the beginning, and that's where the opportunity has traditionally been.
Yeah, I've never known BlackRock to get into something though to fail. So that kind of leads me to that portion of it. Is I don't think they're getting into it to hurt the users unless they're being paid to do so. That would be the only way I could see them not going after. Who knows? I don't think they're going for the users though.
Oh, dang it! You can't do that, Ewok.
I was actually going to say I feel the opposite way. I feel like they may be doing that because, by the time that you incorporate one of these ETFs into whatever your portfolio is or something like that, and then the price starts going down, I mean, BlackRock's going to have control of the fund anyway. And I'm sure they're taking like hefty expense ratios out of it and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they're getting ready to dump on people's heads probably. That's just the... masochist in me, or the realist, I guess. But
it's quite possible. Are you trying to?
You got it, Johnny?
I'm still looking for it. I'm letting you guys
All
talk. I'm still looking for it. You guys talk. I've done talked a whole bunch.
All right.
Go on with your show.
I do think it's interesting though. Yeah, I do think that we could see suppressed prices because of that. So that's why I'm a fan of getting more aggressive now. And I really like what Johnny said too, because, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Ewok, because this does make you kind of double down on DeFi even more. You know, we already think that we're in the best projects of crypto, the best products in crypto that have been created. What do you think this does for DeFi long term? Because this is all obviously going to be, this is just Bitcoin ETFs. Eventually, there'll probably be an Ethereum ETF.
Sure.
But, you know, it feels good. I think it feels even better to be in DeFi in a time like this. Because, yeah, maybe we still run as normal. And if the rest of the market is a little bit suppressed towards the end and they are dumping on everybody's heads and stuff like that, maybe we don't experience that as strongly still being in DeFi. What do you think about that?
Well, if they do dump on people's heads, I think it goes back to the original statement, and Richard preaches this all the time, is crypto was invented to get rid of the middlemen. See what they're doing? Guys, this is true crypto over here. This is why you need DeFi. So, I mean, it could totally benefit systems like ours, you know, to have the decentralization and the, you know, as far as PulseChain goes, and the system that is HEX, you know, trustless yield. You don't have to trust anybody anymore to make a good yield on your own product. So I think it could only really help us, especially if they do decide to dump on people's heads. Now, if they prop the price up and they do some funny things, and you know, then we'll see. But again, we just have to see how that one plays out, because you know, it could go either way, but like I said, you know, if they do malicious things, it's more reason to bring people over to our ecosystem and say, there you go. That's prime example of why we don't want middlemen in here, because this is what they do all the time.
Yeah. Let's finish off with this, because this was kind of the main topic of our show tonight. I'd like to get Johnny's thoughts on it too. So now I am going to hold Johnny to this. And if he doesn't give us the answer that I want, then I will have to do some splicing and some things like that on the back end to kind of recreate it. But, you know, people talk a lot about, like, in traditional finance, like portfolio diversification. So like, oh yeah, you know, the S&P 500 is top 500 companies and all this. Can we talk about why that may not be as great of an idea in crypto? And of course, we're all in this ecosystem that Richard Hart's really created with PulseChain, HEX, and everything else. What do you think are the benefits and the costs of each strategy, I guess, of like being extremely, because you can even be quote unquote diversified within the PulseChain ecosystem, and then you can stretch as far as Tehedron, Icosa, that stuff, and play around with it if you want to. What do each one of you think about like that? Like, how concentrated are you okay being? And I guess, like, in present day, with prices fluctuating a lot, specifically today, how are you kind of divvying up your allocations to this ecosystem right now?
I'm still really strong in HEX. My belief is that because of bonding, because of ratios, that HEX has to go up when everything else goes up. So I'm diversified to the point where I have a little bit of each in the ecosystem, but I'm watching more chances to buy HEX, and especially at, you know, these lower things. But the diversification is in the Richard ecosystem, you can't really diversify like you think you can, because they are bonded. People don't want to hear that, you know, but that's the truth. And actually, if you notice, you can look at the charts. HEX has started with, you know, being worth 100 pulse. Today, it's now worth 140 pulse. We're getting closer and closer to that 200 that somebody said like forever ago. But yeah, so we're HEX is gaining in terms in pulse. And what we have seen so far is that when people sold their pulse and their HEX, or their pulse and their PulseX, everything went down. So we're seeing the bonding, but we're seeing it in reverse right now. We haven't seen the magnitude of what it's going to be like when the candles turn green. I think it's going to be really clear for everybody how bonded it is and how, some things are leverage plays on others because they're worth multiple of those things. So when that thing rises, it gets a multiple of it because you can trade that thing for 130 or 140 of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that ratioing continues to gain, well, now you're trading this one thing for 200 of these things. So if this thing's going up in price, but you can trade this thing for 200 of them, the price has to simply be what the ratio is, because you can trade that thing back for the 200 and then trade that thing out. So any way you want to look at it, the thing that's worth 200 of them has to be valued at that. You know what I'm saying? So there really isn't a lot of diversity in the Richard Hart ecosystem because the pools are large. Now, some pairings were not made initially. Okay, that's what we're looking at. Some pairings, we just let the chaos happen and let everybody go their own way and pick their own sides and do whatever instead of trying to. It was a hands-off approach. I think it would have saved a lot of chaos and confusion and stuff if it would have been painted out. But we know Richard doesn't like to box people in and point them in a particular direction. He does kind of like to let things work their way out. And he's taken a hands-off approach. And, some of that could be because, people were pointing it out, right? And maybe he doesn't want to be accused of manipulation or something. Maybe he needs to, he's been taking a hands-off approach in all aspects for the most part.
Well, that was my thought originally when they removed the EHEX PHEX pair. It just got yanked, and I was like, I wonder why. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, maybe because I did hear him say not long after that, the market will decide. We'll let the market decide. Obviously he didn't want to be responsible for any kind of, I wouldn't even call it manipulation, but when you bond it 1-to-1 or very close, it was very, very close to 1-to-1. It still isn't that far off.
4 thousandths of a dollar.
Yeah.
Holding this whole time about 4 thousandths of a dollar.
Yeah.
When we're a dollar, is 4 thousandths of a dollar going to mean anything?
Right.
And I know people are saying 30%, 70% of a penny.
Yeah.
This gets different as we get bigger numbers, guys.
Right. So does it stay at that 30%? I doubt it. I think they go back and forth. I really think you're going to see premiums and discounts on both of them. And as time goes on, if that T-share rate really gets out of whack, people are going to take advantage of it. It's going to take a while.
Even if we move from, we're at 1.5 now, even if we move 1.5 to 2, that means half price T-shares on the other chain.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which means double the yield on the other chain. So if you're getting double the yield on the chain, that's way more than the 30% in price.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But to get that, people have to, it just seems like we were talking about this at the top of the episode. There's this departure from people, shiny new toy syndrome. Obviously, they're looking at PulseChain, they're looking at PulseX, and there's just, I feel like this kind of newer crowd that isn't really as familiar with HEX staking mechanisms and just doesn't understand it. And I'm wondering when that comes back in, Johnny. I don't know if you have thoughts about that, but I mean, maybe it's just a story I've created, but it just seems like people are not thinking about that right now.
They haven't been wrecked enough yet. They haven't had enough of permanent loss. They see numbers and they're chasing it. I'm actually going to put a video together on basic market dynamics. So, and I'm going to do it about hot dog stands to kind of do it in a kindergarten way to explain things to people. I kind of went on a little bit of a rant today. I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. I should really use that to kind of break things down. I don't know if you guys caught my Twitch today. I was actually trying to talk about, Ewok did. I know Ewok caught it.
I saw you yesterday. I didn't see today. I saw the yesterday rant.
Is Francis going to make an appearance?
Do what?
Is Francis going to make an appearance in the video?
Oh, should Francis be that? No, I just kind of wanted. I thought about downloading Doodly and then sitting here at the computer and actually just building it out because it's really kind of an important thing, because people don't understand markets in general and arbitrage in general, and how things work. When you see the outsiders are looking in and they see this one guy with this one stand that's making $1,000 a day, and they're like, "Ooh, we see him making $1,000 a day. Let us go do it." And then all the hot dog stands pop up around them, right? And then now all of a sudden, none of them are making $1,000 a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of on that sort of note, I mean, I don't want to get in, it's a big spiel, but kind of on that sort of note, to explain how markets work, how supply and demand works, how whales can make a play. Like, for instance, this guy sees this guy selling his hot dogs for cheap, so he buys up his hot dogs, and then he goes home and then he changes his sign to where these hot dogs are now $2 each because he bought the other guy's hot dogs. I mean, I've done these same kind of things at like trade shows and events where I bought up people's supply. Now they don't have any supply, so they can't sell against me. So that's like another whale game, that people don't. There's all this nuance because they don't teach this kind of stuff in school.
No,
you have to learn through business on what kind of plays to make, to know where a demand is, to know how to control the supply. Richard talks about the De Beers diamond thing. Diamonds aren't really all that rare, but because De Beers owns them and they only ration them on the market, right? They can control the prices. You, as a whale in a community, guess what you can do if you're smart? You don't dump your bag. That's like taking all of your comic books to a pawn shop and going, "What can I get for them?" Instead of taking each comic book out and putting it on eBay and selling it for full price and making people fight over it, right?
Yep.
So if you go and you dump your whole bag of crypto, that guarantees you get the worst possible price in that time frame. You are literally making sure that you get the worst possible price in that time frame. If you know how markets work and you understand, then what you want to do is you want to ration those when they're in demand. You want to wait for the price to come to you. In order to do that, you can't treat it like a lottery ticket. In order to do that, you have to be in a position that you're comfortable when somebody comes along and they offer you a price. You can say, "Piss off. It's worth more than that, and I'm not taking less than this." Have you ever, sold a car or something and somebody comes in and tire kicks and says, "Oh, I'm only going to pay this much for it"? And you say, "Absolutely not. I need this amount of money." Or are you one of those people going, "Yeah, sure, I'll take $1 for it"?
Then it becomes on what you value, and we go back to that. What do you value what you hold? And if people are selling it for pennies, then they don't value it.
Right. And I think that comes from a lack of education and a lack of planning too. You have to know what you have to have some kind of a long-term goal and have all this stuff laid out to begin with. But I think what you're saying, Johnny, also gives people a lot of solace too, because then you can really focus on, instead of just looking at the USD price of a lot of these assets, you can look at the amount of tokens you have, not worry about that as much. And by playing some of these arbitrage games, and I don't mean necessarily ratio trading, but looking at ratios and understanding how they work and everything, you can more optimally make decisions to see what to take advantage of. Perfect example is exactly, we've been talking about it on the show for a few weeks, but what you're saying about the potential for the HEX on Ethereum T-share rate and the payout per T-share. I mean, if we do start to see an imbalance of significance to where what you're getting by staking HEX on Ethereum, even if there is a 50% split continuously as we move up the market from PHEX to EHEX, it's going to be beneficial to stake it.
It has other self-balancing mechanisms other than the liquidity itself. It has other self-balancing mechanisms. And the other aspect of that is what people don't understand is that the Ethereum side is closer to the exit that people are familiar with. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's also closer to the entrance.
Yep.
So when money is coming into crypto, it's going to be quicker for a lot of people to get into the Ethereum, just like it's quicker for them to exit the Ethereum side now. And I made a post about that, but I try to be really vague about these things because I'm not trying to influence people or tell them what to do. I'm just trying to let them know how things work and things to take into perspective that they might not be considering. Ethereum still has 10 million users. What do we got? 200,000?
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. That is really significant. There are a lot of people that their first look at HEX is going to be on the Ethereum network because they're going to pull up CoinMarketCap and they're going to go, what's this HEX thing I'm looking about? And they're going to look at it. PulseX isn't even listed there, right?
Yeah.
So we're not able to find out who these people are and then say, no, let us explain, right?
They don't want to hear it.
They don't want to hear it. So they're just going to do their own research and they're going to come across the information that they're provided with and they're going to base their judgments on that. What has the most on-ramps right now? What has all the on-chain stables? What has redeemable value? What has all the leverage trading platforms, the yield farms, everything right now? Ethereum.
Yep.
So we're the new kids on the block and we need to wait our turn in line. You don't open up a mom and pop store and think you're going to take on the shopping mall overnight. It doesn't work that way.
Well, a lot of sacrificers thought that because they sure are mad that they didn't get their 50x overnight.
And you know what Ewok, I don't know if you caught it, but when I went on Seven's show, I said something really controversial that really upset people, and I said we could be 1/10 the sacrifice value. And not to be expecting an instant 10x. And I don't know if he clipped it out or what, but I said it back then because literally, if you can't ask somebody that you bought something off of, you buy it for $1 and you say, hey, okay, now that I got it, let me give it back to you. Now you give me $2 for it. No, because they don't have the $2. They only have the $1 that you gave them.
Right.
So in order to do that, what do banks do? Fractional reserve banking. What were they supposed to keep? 10%. What is that? 1/10 of the cost, 1/10 of the value, right? So that gives them 10% in reserve and 90% working capital. That's how it works. You don't buy something from somebody and turn around and sell it back to that somebody for a 10x. Because they would be giving you $9 to your one that you gave them, and they would run out of money, and the show is over, and you end up with a rug. That's not how it works. What you need is new buyers that value what you hold, and if you don't value it yourself because you're trying to dump it on people's heads, guess what? They're not going to value it either. So as the network grows, if you're not trying to dump your position immediately, that's going to help it grow a lot quicker. But if you're dumping on everybody's head that's walking into the door, well, guess what? You get the worst possible price. You don't get your 10x, and you actually cause that. When you're the one dumping, guess what? You're the one that's devaluing the thing that you hold because you are taking your comic books to the pawn shop and saying, I don't care, just give me what you can.
Yep.
And you're responsible for the fact that you drove the price down yourself.
And we're in a tough spot with this network too, because you have all these people that are RH, I don't want to say maximalist, but right. But in order for this network to grow, we've got to onboard a lot of other things, and people just aren't very accepting to that. So it puts us in a tough spot. You want the new things to come on.
You don't have to play around with it, but it's going to come over anyway. So there's no use in resisting it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've already got a fork of Aave. We've already got a fork of Balancer. We've got a fork of Liquidity coming in. We have Portal X. We have the whole Power City entourage of stuff coming in. No one says you have to use it. No one says you have to like it, but you don't need to shit on it either.
Right.
Right.
And that's the big thing that I think we need to get the word out there that, but then again, if they're going to stay, they've got to be successful too. Or they don't stay. If it's not profitable for them, or if they're not
once
any
it's on
kind
the
of
blockchain, it's staying.
right. But that doesn't mean they keep maintaining it or building on it. You know, if they're not getting any kind of support, who's to say they're going to spend the time to continue?
Well, they'll get support. Everything gets support. You know, it's like people think if they open up a business, people are just going to show up. No. You got to be on the map.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, I own a brick and mortar store. Guess what? Guess what, guys? People still think I'm an AutoZone place. They still think I'm audio store, because you know what? They get used to that audio store being there for so long that they don't look, they don't pay attention. They'll drive right by it. They don't know something has changed. And I've been here for 10 years. Yeah. I've got a fire-breathing dragon that I set out front. You would think it would get their attention. You think they would notice, right? Now, my online presence, on the other hand, because of search engine optimization and stuff, you know, I can work that, right? You know, because of going conventions and trade shows, I can make people aware of me there, right? But as far as actually having a brick and mortar sort of situation, you can go invisible. Nobody knows what's in an unmarked building, right? So, and people get used to things being a certain way. People get attached to their brand. You know, it's hard to get people to change. People are change resistant.
Yeah.
They don't know there's change until it hits them in the face, or they have a problem. They have a real bad problem, and they're looking for an alternative path.
Right.
And they stumble across something. So you have to build the roads, even if you have a website, right? So people are like, well, you just make a website and you make money. Yes, when the internet first came out. Now, if you don't search engine optimize, you get pushed so far down in the algorithms. And if you don't own keywords, you get pushed so far down in the algorithms. It's the equivalent of owning a brick and mortar store in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
So if you don't build the roads to get people to where you want them to be, and you don't direct them down that path, guess what? They don't get there. They never get there. You can have the best product in the world, which I think HEX is an awesome product. It's not a problem with HEX. It's the problem that people are unaware, or they don't understand, and we don't have enough reach to help people understand, or they're scared of it and they're afraid. And so people do two things when they're afraid. You know, sometimes they just walk away. It's too complex for me. I can't get into that. How many times have you tried to onboard somebody and they're like, that's too much? Because we got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
We don't need to tell people how to build the fucking engine. All we need to do is tell them how to drive the car. You turn the key, you step on the right side, you're good to go.
Yep.
Okay. If you need to stop, brakes right there, you know? And that's what we need to tell people. And we have a lot of people that are so intellectual, and they expect people to communicate and understand on their level. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult because not everybody does. The reason they're here is because they understand it on a deeper level. That doesn't mean you can expect everybody to do that. You might as well be speaking English to somebody that only speaks Spanish and think they're understanding you, right?
Yeah.
Because you are speaking a different language, and you have to roll that back in to where, okay, let me pretend like I don't know anything. Now, how do I explain this to a person?
Right.
And that's always where I roll into my analogies and stuff, is because I realize that when we're talking to people, it's intimidating. When you start saying, T-shares, 555, this is all jargon. This is esoteric stuff. This is stuff that you know, the average person is not even going to comprehend. Even if they understand crypto, they're not going to comprehend this stuff. Yeah. And then you can have a result where people feel like they're being excluded, even though we're trying to be inclusive and we're trying to educate them. They can feel excluded, or we're talking down to them because we're talking above their head. You have to meet people where they are, and that's where the onboarding is going to happen. You know, talk about the orchards, talk about apples, talk about, you know, these things take time. You don't plant a tree and expect, you know, to go back out tomorrow and start harvesting apples, right? People need to understand these basic concepts so that when they get in, they're not just chasing the green candles and treating it like it's some kind of degenerate lottery ticket thing, you know? Because when they do receive those lottery winnings, how many people actually survive winning the lottery?
Not many.
Right. Yeah.
We either end up dead or broke.
So we gotta teach people how to plan. And HEX being the mechanism that it is, it encourages the right behavior if people are able to utilize it the way that it is. But that's not what a lot of people that are in the crypto, they're not looking for a saving, 401k, IRA, long-term
Right.
savings thing. They're looking for the quick buck. So
Pepe.
yeah, they're looking for the quick buck. So when these quick bucks happen, boom, they're off chasing these green candles. They think they're going to win. And I feel like we fail in our education because, from the very start, this is supposed to be a long-term plan. And all of a sudden, all the influencers we're going to 100x out the gates.
Yeah.
You drew in the wrong crowd. What did you expect to happen to the price? The price gets artificially inflated because the wrong buyers are coming in for the wrong reasons. And then when it doesn't work out the way that they wanted it to immediately, they're turning around and dumping it on the market. So who wins in that situation? They get the worst possible price. They get a terrible experience. And we've got them all excited. And now they're mad at us because we conveyed the wrong message.
I really think because of all the things that you're mentioning, as this time goes on, whenever we do see Richard Hart stream again, who knows whether that's important to you if you're watching or not. I think we're going to see this reallocation to like more people talking about HEX, more people getting back to the basics of HEX staking and things like that. Number one, once the shine kind of wears off PulseChain and PulseX being a new thing. But as this market wages on, I mean, this year is still going to be relatively boring for crypto standards the next 6 months. So I think that I'm confident we are going to see more of a shift back to that HEX education, back to HEX staking. And I agree with you, Johnny. Yeah, we need to do even a better job of it and just start talking more about that than everything just on PulseChain and PulseX. So any other final thoughts from you gentlemen tonight? I think that's a good place to kind of end it, but I'm with you 100%. We need to get back to that long-term thinking. And I think we will get there. I think we're going to see it, and I think that's what Richard Hart will focus on whenever he does kind of come back in full force when the market picks back up.
If he does. When do we expect him to come back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, too. You see a lot of these people that are begging Richard to stream. Why? And Richard knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Richard knows this.
Pump their bags.
Richard knows that you want him to stream so that you can exit.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows it.
Yep.
He's not dumb. In fact, the more that you guys are not you guys, but you know how I do that you guys thing. The more that people badger him to stream, the less likely he's going to, because he's looking at sentiment.
Yeah.
And the sentiment is people want a quick pump so they can exit their position and just walk away. And what Richard has tried to teach this whole time was delayed gratification. How many times has he said delayed gratification? How many times has he said, who wins? Holders, founders, and exchanges. Those are who win long term. Right now, it looks like the traders won because we're looking at a certain time frame, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's what people need to understand. There was only this much time that you could have bought the top. There has been this much time that you could be buying the bottom.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And if you're buying the bottom during this much time, you can go watch Crypto Coffee's movie that he put is YouTube that he put out about the biggest secret of crypto. If you would have dumbly just bought $100 a week, you would have outperformed everybody. If you just bought $100 every week, regardless of where the price was, because of the time that we were down is so much more significantly longer than the time that we were up, that it would have balanced. So it's not really about the price. It's about how long you actually hold. And if you're not planning on holding long term, then pick something else, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're trying to tell you how these things work over time. And, people still want to chase the lottery tickets. Do you want to know what works, or do you want to dream of what you think works?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a common problem in the market is people like to look at the market, see that it is one way, but because they want it to be another way, they think it should just be the way that they want it to be, rather than just respecting the market, which is what we have to do. So,
Pac-Man seems
What's
to think
Pac-Man
you
go?
should talk about his PP more.
Pac-Man was trolling me. It's actually kind of funny because Pac-Man used to troll me, and now every once in a while I see him and it's like, hey, that Johnny guy, he's not all that bad after all.
How about
there you go. Well, hey, Johnny, this has been awesome, man. Thanks for the impromptu stomp in. You got an open invite, I'll just tell you, for anytime you want to stop in the show. You can just
I like to stalk, guys. I like to watch your work and see what you're doing. And I think you're doing a good job of trying to put some reason out there into the space. Nobody gets everything right all the time, right. But you're putting in the effort there, and I think it's awesome. I shared out your stream. I don't know how many people you got watching it now. Yeah, I didn't tell them I was coming on, but I did share out your stream.
We appreciate it. We got about 58, 60 or so we've had. So
yeah, we appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's going to help the channel grow a little bit more. Always good to network with a known long-term Hexican. So yeah, man. Yeah, open invite anytime you ever want to come on. And yeah, again, we're just enjoying your stuff. Glad you're open to being on camera a little bit more again, for sure.
No, there's no guarantees on that. I get it. You mentioned me earlier. You said chaos one too many times, and I had to appear. So
you got to appear.
And I wanted to thank you guys, for your support and understanding that it can be real frustrating. When you are trying to help the newer channels, and you guys know, I've been out here, and so just don't go evil on me and start saying, yeah, that bastard Johnny Chaos, because then I'll lose my cool again.
You got it. You got my word anyway.
Well, just remember the recording is in our possession now, so whatever we choose to do with it, however we decide to splice this up,
however you decide to manipulate it.
Yeah, it's on us.
Hex is going to $30,000.
There you go. Perfect.
There's going to be an AI Johnny telling you, buy my trading course.
Beautiful. Well, hit us up with your Patreon link a little bit later, and we'll put that in the description.
I got a Patreon? I do now, I guess. I just didn't know about it.
All right, man. Well, hey, it was good seeing you, bud. And yeah, open invite, and I'm sure we'll touch base soon.